Welcome to Watches with Dennis, and today I want to talk about Girard-Perregaux Laureato Green Ceramic Aston Martin Edition watches. There are two different versions of this watch. One is a 38mm and one is a 42mm, but other than the sizing, they are essentially the same. The price of the 38mm is $25,000 and is limited to 188 pieces, whereas the 42mm version is priced at $25,800 and is limited at 388 pieces. In terms of specifications, both the watch case and bracelet are made out of green ceramic. The 42mm version is 11.08 millimeters thick, whereas the 38mm is only 10.27 millimeters thick. Both watches offer 100 meters of water resistance, are protected by a sapphire crystal, and feature sunray green dials with some diamond cross hatching that is reminiscent, I believe, of an older Aston Martin logo. The calibers that drive these watches are different. The 42mm is driven by the GP01800, whereas the 38mm is driven by the GP03300. These are both 4 Hz automatic movements. The 42mm watch has approximately 54 hours of power reserve, whereas the 38mm has approximately 48 hours of power reserve. And as you would probably expect, the jewel count, number of parts, and the size of those movements does vary, with the 38mm being a smaller movement. These watches are time plus date only, with a central seconds hand. The watches do have display case backs, so you can enjoy looking at the movements. And the watches do have lume. Now, in terms of my first thoughts, these are very, very green watches. I'm not an Aston Martin person. I don't know anything about Aston Martin other than they make cars, so my understanding is this green is aligned with their version of the green, and I'm sure they've executed that appropriately. I do struggle with watches that are very, very samey in the sense that like everything about them is the same color. I do think that Girard-Perregaux has done a decent job about differentiating so it doesn't all blend in, sort of like Omega's black on black. To me, seems like it's a little hard to read. This isn't nearly to that extent. I think the lume markers make things relatively easy to stand out on the dial, and the dial with its texturing and its metallic sheen really stand out against what is otherwise a fairly matte case and bracelet. All that said, I don't really like the look of this watch. Anytime I see these style of Girard-Perregaux, I really struggle because to me they look an awful lot like Royal Oaks without the screws in the bezel. And yes, that basically just comes down to the fact that they've gone with a very similar bezel shape. I've heard some good things about Girard-Perregaux. It is not a company that I've ever really looked at. I've never handled one of the watches. I've never gone to look at any in person. And I do remember during the pandemic, it seemed like a number of those sort of what I would call backpack watch flippers were really pushing Girard-Perregaux, almost like trying to make it be the next hot thing. And I don't think that it is. But I know other watch connoisseurs are pretty big fans of this company. So this watch doesn't really work for me. I think it's way too green. I think this watch is at least a year too late to go ahead and properly capitalize on the green bandwagon. Yes, I know that this is more about their association with Aston Martin, and this is not the first time that they've partnered with Aston Martin. So that's why they're going with the green, not so much to, I think, capitalize on a fad. But nonetheless, it feels like that just simply because everything pretty much about this watch is green and it's not in the year of green. Obviously, these watches are limited, so that's probably got some factor in with the pricing. But at this sort of $25,000 to $26,000 range, you are in entry-level Holy Trinity territory. Granted, those are going to be more dress watch oriented in all instances, whereas this is obviously a very sporty sort of watch. Overall, I think this is mostly going to appeal to Aston Martin fans that happen to have the wallet to be able to afford something like this. But beyond that, I'm really not sure who this is going to appeal to. It's not an unattractive watch, but at the price point, I think you're really asking a lot for someone to accept something that's just this green. But anyway, those are my first thoughts. Comment below in terms of, do you like this watch? What do you know about Girard-Perregaux? I'm always willing to learn more. It's not a company I've really dived into, but maybe I need to give them a closer look. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please do give it a like. If you want to be notified when I have new videos, click the subscribe button, and I'll talk to you all on the next one.